Hello, and welcome to another fully live Friday episode of Hacking with Friends. I am live from the Verona's bunker, which you might think that I'm actually in outside Spokane, Washington. But through some technological trickery, I'm actually in a secure building, which I cannot disclose. So, hello to everyone today. I know I'm running a little bit behind, but that's because of our cool new camera equipment. So, at any point, this could potentially cut off as it did on our last stream. So be prepared for that. But we're going to go through the cyber news of the week today and also talk about some cool hacking tools. So if you're just joining us, then I was planning on going live a little bit earlier today, but the setup is a little bit special with this camera. So we're now using a Canon R50. And if you are a video/film nerd, you know it's this handy little camera that's really great, except it gets a little hot sometimes. And also you cannot both stream from it and charge it at the same time, as I found out last time. So hopefully we'll get some good mileage out of it this time. But yeah, we will see. So hello to everybody in the chat. Good to see James. Good to see SAQ and Rogue Farula. Yeah, hello everyone. Got lots to talk about this week. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was probably the craziest story we're going to cover. I'll probably come back to it a little bit just because I think it's such an interesting story, but check this out. This was a story in which deepfake tools were used in a malicious campaign to basically frame someone and get them in a lot of trouble with both the community and online. So, all right, let's dig into the story. I want to talk about how deepfakes are actually being used in the real world. And this was like front page news, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But this is the new reality. This is something that you need to be aware of. So let me pull this back up so I'm looking at it too. So, all right. So this athletic director was apparently about to be let go from the school that he was working at for a number of reasons. One of the things that was cited was like possibly some thefts from the school or like payments that were like not like on the up and up. So there was a conversation between the principal and the athletic director, and the athletic director was told by the principal, there's some issues here with your performance at work, and we're not going to renew your contract. So what happened was the athletic director downloaded a large language model, like something that allowed them to figure out how to take the steps to stitch together a deep fake, basically. So they're like, hey, how do I like create this piece of like malicious like fake media? And they were guided along by an AI and then used AI tools to actually clone the voice of this principal and make him basically be discussing some really like racist and sensitive things. So this story was probably the first of the kind in the country. At least that's what it's saying. That's what authorities are saying here, because they haven't been able to find any other cases. And what's pretty interesting about this was it was highly targeted. It was obviously pretty effective. And there's not really laws here that we have against deepfake content. So because this person was caught, it looks like maybe this is something that lawmakers are going to start taking more seriously. But let's get into the details of this. So the suspect here faked the voice of Pikesville High School's principal in response to conversations men had about Darian's poor work performance and whether his contract would be renewed. There were also concerns that he had paid his roommate $1,900 in school funds under the false pretense of coaching the girls' soccer team. So he forged an audio clip that made it sound like the principal was frustrated with Black students and their test-taking abilities. They also said the recording purported to capture the principal disparaging Jewish individuals and two teachers. The audio clips quickly spread on social media and had profound repercussions, including a big mob of people online sending a bunch of hate-filled messages on social media and calling the school over and over and over. This disrupted activities at the school and obviously had the desired effect of kind of like getting this principal in trouble as a result of them not deciding to continue on with this person's contract. So of course, once that came to light, the principal was like, I never said this. Like there has to be something else going on. There was an investigation, and they were able to find that this was an actual like deep fake in the wild being used to frame someone for something they didn't do. So here are the charges: theft, which was related to the school money being missing, disrupting school activities, stalking and retaliating against a witness, and that's it. So I would expect to see like some other charges here for something that's like so heinous and that basically put this person and their family in danger by making it seem like they were saying hateful things in a public place. But again, this was a deepfake, and it was only able to be done both through the guidance of a large language model and then using generative AI to create a deepfake voice. So obviously in the security industry, like we're concerned about like business email compromise and like all sorts of things that are going to be used in like a malicious context for cybercrime. But this is an example of not so much like cybercrime, but just regular old crime, which means that the technology here has really started to trickle down to the point that like it's startling that you could see a piece of media online and it could sound pretty good, like a captured conversation, kind of like the conversations I think that got captured by somebody with the LA City Council, where they got in like lots of trouble for a lot of the things that they said. Those sorts of recordings may never be able to be fully authenticated again. You know, like now all someone has to say is like, oh, it's AI generated, it's fake, and you might be able to defend against having said some pretty heinous things. So I think that this is a landmark kind of thing where at this point, you're never really going to be sure whether or not some crazy inflammatory thing you see online is real or if it's fabricated by somebody with an agenda. And as these fakes get better and better, it's going to get harder and harder to tell. So already this one was pretty difficult to find. They basically figured out that this was multiple like layered audio recordings that somebody had mixed together to try to make them sound more convincing. But again, it's pretty crazy to me that you can find something online that looks convincing, that people are reacting to. They're calling the school, they're shutting down school activities. All this is pretty wild. So if you see something now, somebody also says this was in Baltimore. Lucky he didn't get shot. Yeah, this really honestly put somebody in danger because it made it look like they were in a position of trust, abusing that trust by harboring a bunch of hateful beliefs. So I'm super blown away by this. I think that like it really shows that the technology is here to do some pretty wild stuff with deepfakes. So again, if you see this sort of thing on social media, I know like in particular, like Facebook is inundated with AI generated content that's just like kind of low quality, but like it's engaging. I think you're going to start to see outrage based content as well. We're seeing like kind of novel generated deepfakes being shared around Facebook and LinkedIn. We're like, ah, ha, ha, look at those people. They don't understand that it's fake. But soon I think you'll see rage baiting using the same kind of content. And that is very dangerous for the people that it targets because you can, create fake information about someone that gets everybody online or in a certain community really, really upset. And that sort of hatred really has real world implications. Like if there's like death threats or if someone like is throwing a brick through this person's window or like trying to get them like kicked out of the school because of what they believe they said, that reputation may never fully be restored. So we live in a new time where potentially somebody who has a dispute with you could clone your voice and have you saying some pretty messed up stuff. So as somebody who has a bunch of YouTube videos out on the internet, obviously that's a little bit of a concern for me. Yeah, it does not seem like you need a lot of specific information to be able to pull off this sort of attack anymore. So yeah, scary stuff. Let's see. Also, wow, we have a lot of people already in the stream, 57 people live. Let's see. One person, SAQ, saying, make a video project capturing Wi-Fi handshakes on ESP8266 with Spacetune. You can't. You can't do that. It's not possible. So just a quick response to that. Not only do I not work with Spacetune anymore, but the ESP8266 as a microcontroller is great for Wi-Fi hacking stuff, but it can only receive metadata. So like packet information, but not the contents of the packets. So it's actually impossible for the chip, as far as I know, to be able to receive a full handshake. So unfortunately, that dream may not come true. I'm sorry. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some other cool stuff that I have worked on this week. So we were talking about LoRa, and I have two of my LoRa example boards here, and of course they're green, same color as the background here. But these boards are a LoRa pair that is able to exchange rickrolls. So I'm going to be doing more of a video on this later, but I was testing it last night and I managed to use CircuitPython to send a rickroll over a very long area. And we're going to test to see exactly how far that rickroll can go today. So of course, everybody was waiting for me to do some sort of payload on this, and it's going to be rickrolls. But getting rickrolls to work over LoRa using CircuitPython actually wasn't as hard as I thought. CircuitPython has some pretty good libraries for this. So if you're looking for some cool LoRa stuff to do, then there's a couple of CircuitPython libraries you can kind of mash together to make one of these bad like extremely far remote bad USB pairing devices. So a lot of fun, and hopefully some more video on that soon. All right, let me pull this back up and let's talk about some more news. I've seen that Rickroll. Okay, cool. So some stuff that I saw on Twitter that I wanted to cover. One of them was Lockfish. So, oh my gosh, my computer's getting so hot. We'll see how this does. So Lockfish is something that allows you to potentially get someone's PIN on their phone, and it makes it look as though their phone is locked. And if they are not paying attention, you could potentially like put this on their phone and then leave it for them. It'll keep their screen basically open, unlocked on this, waiting for them to put in their PIN, but instead it actually sends it to you. So this is a pretty clever use of like a little like web application, or like a way of being able to get people to believe that, you know, like just like that old prank where it's like a Windows login screen or whatever, but it's actually just your desktop with all the windows, with all the like icons hidden. This is a pretty sneaky way of being able to trick somebody into putting their PIN into their phone when it's actually reporting back to you via a web application. So I always love to see interesting mobile hacking stuff. This was the first time that I've seen this particular tool. So if you're looking for some interesting and cool hacking tools, then Lockfish is probably my pick this week. Oh my gosh, sorry everyone. This is, the computer's really hot today, trying to make you believe I'm outside in Spokane. All right, so next up we have a video released by Angelina. Angelina's been on the show a lot, and I wanted to shout out her new YouTube video talking about GPS signal jamming. So Angelina is a pilot, so obviously jamming means a lot to her if she's like flying around. Oh, there she is. So if you want to learn about how it's possible to detect jamming and what kinds of jamming actually affects GPS systems, then check out this video. It was just released yesterday, actually. So it's fresh off the press. Angelina has a unique perspective on this, and her signals intelligence classes and videos are always the best. So highly recommend you check this out if you are interested in GPS jamming, GPS spoofing, or just general signals intelligence. All right, and I will drop the link for this in the chats. Okay, so this is that Rickroll that I talked about earlier. Just want to prove that I wasn't lying. You can see that one of these brand new nuggets is plugged into my computer. The second one is just connected over LoRa, and I am exchanging a payload. This is obviously pretty short range, but you can see that the new LoRa add-on is pretty basic, honestly. We're just soldering on an RFM module and getting it running with CircuitPython. So I have to give a shout out to CircuitPython. They have really done a great job in making at least this part of using LoRa super simple, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So if you're someone who's been considering playing with LoRa as an application, then hey, this is something I think you might enjoy. It was a lot easier than I expected. Oh, and I also have the code. So I will drop the actual CircuitPython code for this because it is quite simple to use. Okay, so I've seen this video going around, and we've been talking about generative AI and deepfakes and stuff. So here we go again. So instead of just using generative AI to make a audio recording, you can also go the route of both video and streaming. So we don't necessarily need to just create a static fake video. We can now create dynamic live fake video, which I think is a lot more, a lot more entertaining. So if we were talking to someone who was deepfaking themselves as an executive or as somebody else, it might be pretty hard to tell based on this kind of faking, especially if we make the webcam like look a little bit lower res to disguise like some of what's going on. Like I, having been on TikTok for a long time, can recognize when someone's face is being put through an algorithm, maybe a little bit better than some people. But I think that if you hid this correctly, it would be really, really hard to tell that the person you're talking to is not who they are appearing to be. You can see like all the important details are being mimicked here. But yeah, so if you're looking for an AI girlfriend, having a character actor in there, making it a little bit more realistic, that might be the future now. Maybe a cool side gig, who knows? But either way, you can expect this to be used not just in the AI girlfriend industry, but also in the cybercrime industry. Again, business email compromise is going to be where you typically see something like this, because it's going to be super easy for people to appear to be somebody that they aren't. So yeah, I have to say, like, this is what I'm going to be looking out for, because I was just not ready for how realistic some of these look. I've, again, seen them on platforms like TikTok, where like we're doing some sorts of like manipulation or like video or whatever. But yeah, it's very, very strange to see it in real life. Okay, is this stream frozen? Okay, well, my stream is frozen, but I guess we'll see. All right, moving on. So we've got a lot of news this week covering cybercrime. And let's start out with actually just some generally bad news. So Google is now claiming that they are going to really start cracking down on any sort of ad blocking. So what that means, is my camera frozen? It looks like it is. Okay, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm gonna peel back the veil and you'll get to see that I'm not in fact in outside Spokane. Here we go. What a sad reveal. Okay. Anyway, so Google is going to start making it so that if you are using an ad blocker, then it gets maybe 3 videos in and then tells you, you need to buy YouTube Premium. Their whole strategy for this seems to be like, all right, like if you want to participate, you gotta pay for this. And I think that that's going to make a lot of people mad. Like, frankly, like nobody really likes having the expectation that they have to pay for, using YouTube and avoiding ads. And so many people have gotten used to it. I think it's going to be generally unpopular, as you can imagine. But if you are somebody like me who benefits from ad blockers, you can expect to see the benefit of those start to be mitigated as Google finds ways to punish you for for using these things. So that is rolling out soon. And again, they now want you to pay $13.99 or $18.99, which, by the way, keeps going up constantly for no reason, if you want to enjoy YouTube with no ads. I expect that you'll start seeing more like videos like this that let you know you have 3 videos before you're no longer able to watch videos on YouTube without ads. So very unfortunate. I am not looking forward to that, and something that I think most hackers will be unhappy about. Okay, so we talked about how some of these online like mental health companies were getting in trouble for tracking. Now, a lot of this was just basically doing the same kinds of tracking that any normal business would do, but not really remembering that they have private medical information going through their business as well. Now, there was Facebook pixels, there was TikTok information that was going out, like, oh yeah, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and TikTok using integrated tracking tools on its website or apps, which allowed those organizations to build sensitive medical data into their profiles of the people that they were kind of tracking with their ads. So talking about why people might not want ads, one of them is that the ads kind of track you. And this was something that was found to be incorporating sensitive medical information that should never have left these people's websites. So the idea is, you go to this website and you get a prescription for like an antidepressant or something. There's no reason why TikTok should know that you are depressed, or like something like that. Just because building that sort of private medical information into people's advertising profiles is super unethical and also illegal. So you can see that there is a refund coming to customers who've been impacted by the deceptive cancellation practices. There was also another pending charge against the CEO, who apparently ordered the removal of the easy cancellation button from the website. They did not agree to a settlement on that, so the court is still deciding on that. But they are now bound to the terms of the settlement, saying that a refund of $5 million to customers is going to happen, a $10 million civil penalty, a permanent ban on sharing health data with third parties, requiring consent from customers before disclosing their personal ad data, and a bunch of other things, just telling them that they can't do that again. So the sensitive information of all these people not being deleted and then also being shared with all these third parties has a lot of people upset. And that's why some of these online mental health services are really not as good of an option as they might seem if they're not taking care of your health data properly. All right, next up, we have like direct text messages to T-Mobile and Verizon workers offering them $300 to swap SIM cards. So what that means is these cyber criminals are basically approaching employees who are in the position to give access to targeted accounts and offering them cash if they're willing to do this. Now, based on some people being arrested for this and getting in a lot of trouble, obviously it might not be as attractive as usual to act as one of these rogue insiders. But cyber criminals getting bold enough to hit up people who currently work at these businesses and see if they want to make an easy $300. That's pretty bold. So yeah, it's if you are using 2FA as your only mechanism of security, then there is potentially, you know, a telecommunications worker who for $300 could really ruin your day. So highly encourage anybody who is using 2FA via like SMS to really reconsider that. Like there's a targeted effort to try to make it so that people who work at these companies are considering, you know, maybe doing a little SIM swap or two. And it's like, oh, I didn't know, like they had all the information that was necessary, you know? So yeah, I would just be very, very careful to anybody who uses 2FA via SMS as their only line of defense is no longer something that criminals don't know how to get around. And these SIM swaps organizations can be pretty sophisticated. All right, next up. We've talked a lot about how critical infrastructure has been targeted in a number of different like incidents, and often the people who are claiming responsibility for this are hacktivist groups, or at least lately that has been the case. It turns out that some of these hacktivist groups were actually Russian military intelligence, and it's been shown by Mandiant that the threat actor who was doing a lot of this critical infrastructure work was actually linked to to Russia's premier offensive cyber group. So this is not a huge surprise. Spying and targeting critical infrastructure is something that they have done before, and Sandworm has been a pretty famous presence in the hacking space. So just tracking some of these APTs and seeing what they're targeting exactly is something that a lot of organizations do. And in this case, tracking them to the critical infrastructure is, again, not super surprising. But if you do see claims from a hacktivist group going after critical infrastructure, it's entirely possible that that might also be a false flag. There's a lot of state-sponsored hacking that goes on under the guise of hacktivist groups, just because it tends to be much harder to go after these groups since they're distributed and aren't actually, you know, state-sponsored. When they are really hacktivist groups. So it kind of seems like the perfect cover, and especially if you're able to use relatively generic techniques that don't link back to you, like, you know, live off the land, like use open source tools that everybody has access to, it's pretty easy to hide your identity if you're a well-resourced organization. So sometimes it's just the sophistication of the attacks and the amount of resources it would have taken to pull it off that really reveal who was behind one of these attacks. All right, so we also have an ongoing attack against LastPass users. Now, LastPass users were noting that there were these phishing calls that were contacting them, claiming that there was an unauthorized access. And basically, if they indicated that they wanted to block that access, following up with a highly targeted phishing campaign that attempted to lead these people to help-lastpass.com. So this phishing page was set up to make it so that people who thought that their accounts were being compromised would get a call from a fake LastPass employee, go to this phishing website, and then reset or resecure their account. But in fact, they were giving the threat actor direct access to their LastPass account. So obviously, these password managers have become a huge target, and that means that these campaigns are getting more and more sophisticated. But unfortunately there's no picture of the phishing page. But basically, the high level of this campaign is that victims would receive a call from an 888 number claiming an unauthorized access to their account, and this is usually like recording, and they're prompted to allow or block the access by pressing 1 or 2. It's probably kind of weird for people who have never been contacted by LastPass before to suddenly get a phone call. But you know, your bank does it sometimes, so I imagine some people might fall for it. If they choose to block the access, they're told they'll get a follow-up call to resolve the issue. They then get a second phone call from a spoofed phone number, and they also get an email from a spoofed support at LastPass account with a link to the fake LastPass website. And then when they enter their master password on the site, it allows the attacker to change the account settings and lock out the legitimate user, as well as probably giving access to all of the passwords in the user's vault. That is obviously the worst case scenario. If you have protected all of your passwords in a vault and then someone tricks you into giving that vault over, that's pretty much it. They have all your passwords. So please be vigilant if you are a LastPass user against these sorts of phishing attacks. All right, so we also have a case of a hospital in France being hit with ransomware and having to shut down 30% of their procedures until they're able to get their systems back online. Obviously, attacks against critical infrastructure, including hospitals, are not popular because they get a lot of attention, and generally federal governments like to investigate these sorts of things. So the threat actor who went after this hospital has not named themselves, unsurprisingly. And often we'll see this sort of activity from ransomware affiliates who purchase ransomware software or become a ransomware affiliate and then deploy it without really knowing who they're going after. And sometimes they get lucky, and other times they get really unlucky and end up hitting a target, like a children's hospital or something, that gets a lot of backlash. So, sometimes they'll get something like a mortgage broker where like there's not a lot of backlash. It really is just part of the risk of this like kind of crime. So in this case, this is a pretty serious impact to not be able to do a lot of the surgical procedures. They're trying to get themselves back up on their feet, but we keep seeing these hospital attacks, and seeing them more and more against, like hospitals that are trying to treat people is disturbing because of the impact that losing access to medical records can have. Like if you don't know what a patient is allergic to, then you can't treat them in a lot of cases because you don't know what kind of medication might kill them. So losing access to online records is a super big deal for hospitals. And you can continue to see these sorts of attacks having a really big impact as ransomware groups continue to target them. All right, so Frontier Communications has shut down their systems after a cyber attack. So if you live in certain areas, Frontier might be your only option. They are a telecommunications company that services in 25 states, and it seems as though they detected unauthorized access to their networks and have shut down a lot of their services in order to protect from exfiltration. It's unknown the scope of the damage, and customers are reporting problems with accessing internet and also being able to access their accounts. So according to initial memo, a network outage took down Frontier's wholesale sites on Tuesday morning, as well as the following applications and platforms. There's a lot here. So if you are noticing disruptions to your Frontier service, or if you're unable to pay your bill, then it's probably related to this ongoing cyber attack. I'm going to skip this one. All right, so we have a little bit more information about the United Healthcare ransomware attack. So this was a huge one. It was multiple terabytes of patient data, and this information was being slowly leaked online. This was a really terrible situation for the company involved because they were getting squeezed in so many ways. There was an incredible amount of damage to their system. The cyber criminals were threatening to leak a lot of incredibly sensitive data online, and it really left them with not very many options to deal with this. So as a result, they decided to pay the ransom. Now, I don't really know how I feel about this. In some cases, I'm like, hey, like, if, for anybody that is included in that data set, like that might be a really good call. And the amount of damage here was at like $800 million. So like almost like $1 billion of damage from the cyber attack. That is crazy to me. That's like a hugely impactful event. So for this company, paying the ransom to keep their customers' data at least hopefully safe, provided that this threat actor is like reputable and like wants to build a reputation as like taking the money and like doing what they say they're going to do, like maybe that made it safer. But it also certainly builds a market for cyber criminals to know that this is super effective and see this as a playbook for applying maximum pressure and getting maximum payout. So I don't know exactly what the settlement was here, but it does seem like, they had a tremendous impact to their business operations. They paid a lot of money to try to stop some of this information from getting out. But cyber criminals are cyber criminals, like they definitely want to be able to make as much money as possible off of this data. So you can expect that they are almost definitely going to resell this information or package it in different ways at some point. All right, next up. This one is kind of crazy. So North Korean hackers were able to abuse the updating mechanism of the eScan antivirus to put a backdoor on corporate networks. And the first thing they did was crypto miners. Now, obviously, if you are in a country that's under sanctions, you want to find whatever ways you can of making money. And crypto miners are a great way for North Korea to do that. So researchers were saying this was a highly sophisticated threat that can do DNS requests to attackers' DNS servers, extract payloads from images and sign its payloads, and perform DLL sideloading. So it's a bit more serious than just crypto mining, but it is one of those things where if you're using a low-cost antivirus service or a free antivirus service, or if you're not sure how quickly they're going to fix it, this could be the thing that allows access to your corporate network. A nation state based threat actor going through all the trouble to do, look at all this, to do all this just to get a foothold is exactly the kind of stuff that North Korea does all the time. So yeah, we always have a most confusing graph of the week, and that this is going to be it for this one. As you can see, these crypto miner is a little bit more sophisticated than just getting people to download the antivirus and then running it. But yeah, another way that attackers can get into a network, abusing antivirus. All right, so Ring customers are getting a $5.6 million refund in a privacy breach settlement that says that Ring employees had unrestricted access to all of the recordings. Now, that means both internal, external, like people could basically do whatever they wanted. And they also didn't implement on customers' accounts any sort of 2FA. That means it was really easy for people to potentially get unauthorized access to someone's Ring account. And if they didn't have a good password or if they were phished, then that means that the threat actor could get access to all of their recordings. Now, the bad thing here, I think, is obviously employees being able to arbitrarily access anybody's Ring information. Like being able to just look up that information and sift through it at will without any sort of protections was really the core of a lot of these complaints. So if you're using a smart product, especially if it stores information in the cloud, odds are it's not end-to-end encrypted. And in the majority of cases, the companies that are behind that data might just be able to arbitrarily access that information and use it for whatever they want. So in this case, it was proved that employees were improperly accessing information belonging to customers and basically rifling through their videos. And because some of these cameras were like indoors or in potentially private or sensitive areas, I think that the privacy implications here were people just didn't realize that there was no process for people who worked at these companies to basically go through your private recordings at will and maybe download them or otherwise like do stuff with them that you did not intend. So if you are a Ring customer, I believe that you have to accept the payment or something like that. But that to me kind of seems like, oh yeah, the FTC is now sending payments through PayPal to a little over 117,000 Ring customers. Customers need to redeem the funds in the next 30 days. Be wary of phishing attacks. I'm sorry, but this whole thing, if I just got like a notice claiming to be from the FTC saying that I had a PayPal payment waiting for me, I would just ignore that. But hopefully the payment's large enough that it matters, because like I would just probably ignore that. All right. Google Meet is adding client-side encrypted calls to non-Google users. This sounds good, but if you want to dig into this, you still need to verify your identity in order to enable encryption. So it's not like anonymous users can be invited to a secure encrypted Google Meet. It actually means you're going to need to sign in with something in order to establish your identity first. So that could be a third-party identity provider. It could be a Google or Microsoft account, or apparently you can send a one-time password supplied via SMS or email. If this is true and you can just get a one-time password to join the meeting and verify some random email address like a 5-minute mail or something, then I think that's fine. Otherwise, I still find this to be a little bit annoying, but still a useful step forward for end-to-end encryption. So there is a maximum severity Flowmon bug that has a public exploit. This, I'm not putting it at the top of the hour because there's only about 100 vulnerable devices on the internet right now, but the exploit code is now available. So Rhino Security Labs released technical details for the vulnerability, and then another security researcher went ahead and just dropped the full thing. So the Italian CERT agency was noting that this is actively under exploitation. So if you are worried about this, make sure to patch it. It looks like there's less than 100 instances that were found on Shodan and Hunter, but The FOFA search engine for network assets showed that there were about 500 exposed online. So depending on who you believe, between 100 and 500 vulnerable servers with a 10 out of 10 vulnerability. Love to see a perfect, what am I going to say? A perfect flaw, like a perfect vulnerability. But yeah, seeing a 10 out of 10 CVE is never good news. But the fact that it's like hopefully about 100 things that need to be fixed here is, it's no log4j. All right, so we also have a major announcement with basically a sinkhole disabling the PlugX malware. And this is with 2.5 million unique IP addresses. Now, that could be a little tricky to count because a lot of these infected devices are coming out of VPN endpoints. So it's kind of hard to know how many are actually behind that. However, it certainly does mean that there are a lot of infected devices that are trying to phone home and get instructions that are now no longer able to do so. So the researchers in this case are considering this botnet disabled, which is great news. And the way that they did it was pretty cool and interesting. So they identified a IP address that was being used as a command and control server, went to the hosting provider and basically convinced them to give the researchers control over this IP range. They then built their own version of the C2 server to make it so that the existing infected versions would be able to check in and get instructions. And they were able to make it so that all the existing infected computers go to the sinkhole and are basically checking in and giving up analytics about, like, who they are, when they got infected, and all that kind of stuff. So this PlugX malware also spreads via USB devices. So the company involved here was like, okay, we could send the kill command that erases the malware from the host computer, but it's just going to get reinfected again when an infected USB drive gets plugged in, which is probably the source of the infection in the first place. So they're not really sure yet what the best way of doing this. They've referred to like some government agencies and said, hey, if you wanted to do a sovereign wipe, and basically put your own reputation as a country on the line to go through and erase this malware from like all these different computers, go for it. But as a private company, we're not going to do it. So if you take a look at the statistics of where this is, some speculation from the researchers was that because PlugX was originally a Chinese military operation, and even though it's become much more of a general tool, the majority of the infected computers were in China's Belt and Road kind of sphere of influence. So there was some speculation that this might be targeting countries involved in Belt and Road, and maybe this is part of like a Chinese espionage thing, but it was kind of noted to take that with a grain of salt, because it's not, it could just be that this malware has had time to proliferate over such a long period of time that it's just popping up all over the place, and it's not necessarily targeted. So the disinfection challenge is really the most interesting part of this article. It's talking about how, like nobody wants to connect to and then brick like 1 million computers or something by accident. So actually disabling this malware permanently and removing the infection is much harder than people, initially might think. Because this spreads over USB devices, you can't just wipe it without also trying to do more, which means basically creating a custom payload, pushing that out, and then having the malware execute a custom payload in an attempt to erase the infection from all these different devices. If you get it wrong, then potentially you end up damaging a bunch of computers all over the world. So kind of a tricky and tight spot for people who are trying to clear this infection in this particular case. So anyway, pretty wild to see a botnet taken down like this. Sinkholes are a pretty popular way of doing that. I know that there was like the WannaCry attack was stopped basically by enabling a sinkhole. So sinkholes are a really interesting concept, and seeing how a security company was able to create a sinkhole after they identified the IP address that this C2 server was using was really cool and interesting. All right, closing in on the end. So LA County Health Services is acknowledging that patient data has been exposed in a data breach, and that thousands of patients' personal and health information is now out there and impacting phishing attacks against several employees. So, or rather, sorry, this is resulting from a phishing attack against employees that has now led to this data breach. So while this was targeted, it seems as though the data is now out there, and they are notifying individuals who have had their information leaked. It seems like a number of employees had their mailboxes compromised and then credentials harvested in a February attack. that is having ongoing consequences. So we're looking at first and last names, date of birth, home address, phone number, email address, medical record number, client identification number, dates of service, diagnosis and conditions, treatment test results, medications, and or health plan information. So for individuals impacted by this, you're going to basically be seeing phishing accounts who know who you are, what your diagnostics are, what medications you are on, and probably what pharmacy you use, which I think for a lot of older Americans or for a lot of like elderly people is going to be particularly impactful. So this is a pretty terrible data breach. The kind of information that is leaked here is some of the worst kind that you can have out there as just a regular citizen. Having people being able to contact you directly, claiming to be a business that you've worked with before, or threatening to leak medical information. Like all of that stuff, I think we're going to see lead to some pretty nasty attacks stemming from this data breach. All right, so the FBI is also warning that if you are using a cryptocurrency transfer service and it advertises itself as a privacy service, you could lose all of your crypto. So the reason for this is that a lot of these privacy-focused crypto transfer services are actually selling money laundering. So if you are putting your money into a privacy-focused like crypto trader, then the problem is if they're not doing anti-money laundering stuff, they're actually able to be seized by the federal government and have all their assets just slowly combed through over a long period of time. And you, as somebody participating in that, don't get your money back, potentially. So this warning comes after the FBI has seized some privacy-focused crypto traders, and it absolutely impacts anybody who might be putting cryptocurrency through something that is doing money laundering. So this is the Samurai crypto mixer, was recently taken down. And because even though like this might be up on the Google Play Store and might be available, it doesn't mean they're compliant with money laundering laws. So if you put any money in any of these that don't ask the right questions when you're signing up, then you are probably putting your money at risk, and it could be seized if like big threat actors or people are laundering their ransomware money through the same mixers. So just be aware that right now, a privacy-focused crypto mixer is probably not the best place to put your life savings. All right. This kind of made me laugh. Okay, so this is the story of a crypto miner who spent $3.5 million on cloud server bills to mine $970,000 worth of cryptocurrency. So by blowing through, like, again, like over $3 million, they were able to create $970,000. A truly inefficient use of money. But by creating a number of fake identities, they were able to basically rack up these bills and then walk away from them. And then leave the companies in question, in this case, Microsoft and Amazon, trying to recoup from companies that don't exist. So some of these were CP30 LLC, Multimillionaire LLC. This guy would basically just spin up tens of thousands of instances after social engineering employees into giving him elevated privileges and providing access to servers equipped with powerful graphic cards. He would then run them into the ground, mining Ether, Litecoin, and Monero. So as soon as the bills racked up, he would walk away from them and then start the process all over again. The money was then laundered through, of course, non-fungible tokens, converting and moving them into various cryptocurrency exchanges, probably privacy-focused ones, and passing them through online payment platforms and traditional bank accounts. So so he just used all the money for a lavish lifestyle that included first-class travel and purchase of luxury items and cars, probably because the money that was created from that $3.5 million worth of cloud services was not enough to pay it back. So we are starting to see more and more of these. Like anytime someone can get access to compute services, they just use it to mine crypto, whether it's North Korea or this guy. They all kind of have the same goal of abusing compute services to just mine as much cryptocurrency as they can. Obviously, this is not an efficient transaction. Like for what you put in, you get out less. But if you're able to walk away from the bills, then maybe that's not a problem. Although, as this guy found out, you can't actually just walk away from the bills. And then the last tool I wanted to point out this week was that steganography is still alive. So this was a tool that was using Stego Amor to hide payloads after infection. And this was a relatively targeted attack. They're targeting the hospitality industry in Latin America, which obviously that's not exactly critical infrastructure. But again, it's interesting to see that a lot of the times that you need to hide something, downloading an innocuous image and then extracting information from that image, it just isn't scanned the same way that maybe a text file or a piece of code would be. And threat actors continue to use this method of hiding code in an image to make it so it's nearly impossible to scan every ingoing or outgoing attachment for these sorts of hidden malicious files. Now, if you have really hidden and encrypted something in an image, it's pretty impossible to extract and scan that information. So this continues to be a really popular way for threat actors to sneak a really bad piece of code that would definitely trigger an antivirus onto a computer without raising any red flags. And that's just about all the news we have this week. As you saw, I started out, outdoors in Spokane, and now I'm just back in the Verona's bunker. So the camera actually lasted through the entire stream this time. So I'm a little bit encouraged because last time it definitely died right as I was doing this segment. So thank you to everybody, all the 110 people on the stream with us today. I'm going to be back live on Wednesday answering your questions, as well as we're going to be doing more incident of the month. So, all right, after the last incident of the month that we did with Joe on Wednesday, I talked a little bit about how there's actually a pretty big Verona security team that uses all these awesome cybersecurity tools all the time. And it would be cool to have them on the stream talking about their favorite cybersecurity tool that they use, and maybe do like a little demo. So like Wireshark, Burp Suite, like all the cool stuff that cybersecurity professionals use on a daily basis. So if you're interested in this, let me know. It's something that I would love to get spun up, and maybe even have them come on this Friday stream and talk about their favorite tool that they use all of the time in either purple teaming, red teaming, or blue teaming, whatever color teaming we're accepting. So cool to see everybody. Guys, why did he stop Nullbyte? Oh my gosh. Ask me that question again on Wednesday, and I might have a different answer, because the people from Nullbyte who now own Nullbyte reached out and were interested in maybe having us do a couple episodes. So if you're a Nullbyte fan, don't unsubscribe from the channel just yet. We might have some content coming out on it at the end of May. So looking forward to also seeing anybody who's going to the RSAC conference in San Francisco. If you're going to be at RSAC, please let me know. I'm going to be at the Verona's booth. I'm going to be recording some cool videos. We'll have gift cards to give away, and just making some cool video content while we're there. So hopefully we see some of you at the RSAC conference. And if you want to support the stream, make sure you go to veronas.com/Kody. That's Kody. It lets everyone here know that you enjoyed the stream, you wanted to keep going, and it doesn't cost you anything to let us know. So I will see everyone on the next Wednesday stream, where I will be back in the regular other Verona's bunker, and I will see all of you next time. Goodbye, everyone.